Today we are going to learn about the art of needle felting, and I'm so excited. I think you guys are going to love it. You can turn your art into anything you want. We're going to learn today with an example of this bird, but you can make anything. You can come up with your own design. You can also turn your design into a patch, a pin, or magnet. Today we are going to create a pattern. The first thing you need to do is get a felt square. Trace that felt square with pencil. Go around it, and inside of the square is where you will do your drawing. Keep your drawing simple. Some ideas could include maybe a small piece of fruit like cherries, a watermelon, a cupcake, a piece of pizza. Those are all simple, straight designs that would be easy to needle felt. You can also choose maybe something a little more complex if you think you can do it. But an idea I wouldn't try is drawing the Titanic. But an idea I could possibly try is drawing a butterfly. Keep your idea a little bit more simple just so you can be more successful. A heart would be easy, or maybe an emoji face. Those are all some ideas you can use. Now we're going to go over some needle safety. These needles are extremely sharp, and yes, they can poke you. If I catch you using this needle in the wrong way in class, you will not be able to do this project. It is not for poking friends, it's not for poking your finger, it's for poking the felt. How to poke the felt is just like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. It is not side to side or from an angle. That breaks the needle. These needles are very thin and fragile, which means they break easily. You need a very sharp point for this to work. If it breaks, it won't work anymore. So it is possible you could break a needle, and that's okay, but we want to avoid that because we need to keep these points nice and sharp. No angle, please. No, no, no. Up and down is how this process works. Whenever you're not using a needle, never keep it on the table, but always keep it in the foam pad. If you look above, you see that needle is resting in the foam. Make sure that you're always using the needle up and down, and not at an angle or side to side. To put felt wool into the felt, you are going to do this up and down needle poke. Keep one hand away from the felt while the other hand is using the needle. If you make a mistake, you can fix that mistake by pulling the felt right out. It's that simple. Put it to the side, do not throw it away. Now that we've learned about needle safety and how to keep needles from breaking, you are going back to your pattern to cut it out. A pattern is a guide to show you where to go. So without a pattern, it would be difficult to know where to put the wool, but a pattern helps the artist know where you want certain colors to go and where you want certain designs to go. Without a pattern, it would be a little more difficult. At the top of your pattern, poke one of your needles, boop, just right at the top. This will hold your pattern and design in place. Don't push too hard or too rough because it will break. You just want to do one quick poke and it will stick in place. Now with your other needle, we're going to poke holes around the entire sketch. So the sketch shouldn't be too complicated, but you want to go and poke holes around the entire sketch you just created. Once all those holes are poked, you need a pin. This is a ballpoint pin. It's like a jelly roller pin, and you just go into those holes, and with that pin, poke the pin inside each hole you made. So every single hole needs to be repoked with that gel pin. Now once that's done, lift up the piece of paper and go over that design one more time with your pin. You will see the pattern is now on the felt and you're ready to start adding in the wool. Pick the colors you'd like to use. For me, I want to make a blue bird with some pops of orange. If you're making a heart, you would need to pick maybe the color of wool you'd want to make with your heart. Perhaps it's a pink heart or a blue heart. If you're making balloons, a cupcake, a cute little squirrel, then you'll need to pick colors that go with that design. for me, this wool, just a little goes a long way. So I only need to pull just a little bit for the beak. First, I kind of place the wool where it needs to go, and I start poking up and down with the needle where the wool needs to be for the beak. Now notice I have some extra wool. I'm going to pull that wool back over and just continue to poke it in where I've sketched in the beak. Just as you poke, it'll start to stick. And you want the edges to be smooth, so pull some of that wool over and just start poking, and it will naturally stick into the felt. I have a lot left. You can either cut it off or you can flip it over like I'm doing and just put it back into the felt. So I'm going back and forth with this until it all sticks inside. So you can choose to cut off that little end and save it for another detail, or keep going back and forth so it's a little bit thicker. Remember, keep your fingers away from the poking. My fingers are to the side, out of the way, and I'm just doing the poking with one hand, and I'm going up and down. I'm pulling those fibers closer to the beak. The only thing wrong with this is it's not quite a point yet. So I still want to keep poking until it starts to look like a beak. And it's now starting to look more like a beak. So anything that looks like it needs to be a little bit straightened up, just pull those fibers over with the needle or with your finger once the needle's out of the way, and then it will start taking shape and form. Now I'm going to add a small detail, which is a tiny little piece of black. I'm going to twirl this in my fingers to where it looks like a straight line, and I put it right across the edge of the beak. Just keep twirling in your fingers because you want it to be thinner. And then once I have it as thin as I need it to be, I start poking it up and down into the center of that beak. You can choose to cut off the end, or what I prefer to do is just use what I have left over and go back the other way. So kind of fold it on top of itself and put it the other way. So I'm just poking, and it eventually will stick in and look nice and straight. So it's just a lot of poking. And that extra fibers that are lifted out, I just pull them back and I poke them inside as well. So it's just taking the extra wisps and poking them inside the felt. Now for the head, we are going to go ahead and felt in that entire head a color, one color. You want to get your first basic colors down. So I'm going to put in the head color and the wings and that middle shape of his body, and then I'll add the feet. So I'm going to use different colors of blue, and I'm choosing a light blue for the head. Remember, contrast is having light against darks, so don't just use one solid color, maybe add some contrast within your design as well. I am going to needle felt the head, then the wings, and I'm going to speed this up a little bit for you so you can kind of see the whole process and how it works. So I let the wool take shape, and I make sure it stays in this circle, and I just fold it over itself and keep poking, and it becomes this shape of a circle. So keep folding that wool in and poking, and then the same for the middle part of his body. I put the felt where I want it to go, the wool, and place it inside, and just poke. You can add colors on top of the colors and add details once you're done with putting in your basic colors. So I'm doing that now. Now I'm going to add in details. So for the eye, I start by getting a little tiny bit of black and I poke. And I just keep poking and twirling the black around the needle and poking it into the felt. I can twirl it around the needle a little bit. I just keep tugging it and then poking it to get where it needs to be. So see how that yarn is following my needle. And if you want to roll it up into a little tiny ball first, you can do that also. And just poke the little tiny ball into the picture. Adding the legs, you take that little tiny bit of black, roll it in between your fingers till it gets nice and thin, and then you'll just poke that through the felt. So just twirl it in your hands. You just need that much black. See how little you need? You don't need a big tough puff of it. You just need little portions of it. Try not to waste the felt. A little bit goes a very long way. So I made this whole bird with just tiny little tufts. And to poke in the feet, you just drag that down and again, poke up and down, and pull on one part of the string. And that's how you do real thin things. You just twirl it with your fingers for thin lines and then poke it gently into the felt. I added a little detail, a heart, and white spots on his tummy. There's a couple things you can do with this. The first is you can leave it right on that felt and take it home with you and you're done. The second is you can cut it out and make it a pin or a magnet. So I'm showing you how to make a pin or a patch that you can put on your backpack or a jacket, or you can also turn it into a magnet because it's very light. So I'm cutting out just around the edges of the felt and the design. Notice how the other side is poking out on the back, so it has these little frays. I'm going to cut those off just a little bit and I'm going to do curved edges. So when I'm done with that, it'll look like this. I'm fixing any felt that seems to be kind of poking out or frayed out still. And we are going to go into showing you how to make this into a magnet or a pin. You need to decide what kind of background you want, what color you want. Do you want yellow, red, turquoise, green? I decided on a light turquoise. Once I do that, I take my glue gun and I glue on the back side of that felt. And I'm very careful not to burn myself, and I put it right on top of another color. Push down, and I try not to put too much glue on because I don't want the glue poking out at the other side. I pick out any glue that shouldn't be there, and I make sure I go around the edges to make sure it's nice and firmly on. I don't want any streaks of glue still remaining. I pick those off and get them out of the way. And once I'm done, I can leave it like this, or what I'm using this for is like a second color to add more contrast. So I'm going to cut around this one more time when I'm done with the glue, and I want to cut around the edges so there's a little bit of color poking out on the other side. Once you're done, you can decide if you wanted to turn it into a magnet or a pin, or you can just keep it as a little critter. You don't need to glue anything on the back unless you want to, but I will have those supplies for you in the classroom. So this is just one way you can do it. This is the example, but you can also just keep it on that original piece of felt and take it home.